Hey guys, this is P.M.R.Bonez88, and summer is almost over, and I didn't really get a chance to review most of the summer horror movies of this year because I've been very busy, and plus I've been getting some costumes and tickets for New York City Comic Con for October, so yeah, I've been very busy. So today, to end this summer horror movie review, I will be talking about is Jaws 2. So Jaws 2 came out in the summer of 1978, and just when you think it was safe to go back in the water.
Jaws 2. Whose idea was it to make it as a sequel? I mean, honestly.
You know, eventually when I first heard about this sequel, I thought for certain that it wouldn't have been just a standalone movie. I didn't know Jaws was going to be a franchise. I mean, sure, after with Jaws 2 and they made more sequels, and eventually it became disappointment, and that's why I prefer is the first Jaws movie. It was not just a classic horror film, it had the elements that had all the suspense, it had the drama, the action, and of course with the horror and the shark attacking. Pretty much it was all thanks to Steven Spielberg because he's the one that directed this film. But unfortunately, since he didn't want to return to do the sequel, they had to replace somebody else, a new director, to direct this second film.
The first Jaws movie was a big hit, and now they decide to make a sequel? Honestly, sometimes sequels are not as better than the original.
The returning stars, Roy Scheider, Lorraine and Murray Hamilton, playing as none other than the obnoxious mayor. Unfortunately, Jaws 2 is actually the same plot than the first film. They left out a couple of formulas, and at first it was going to be a little darker, and another director before John Schwartz. Apparently they had the idea of trying to make Jaws 2 very darker and possibly be a prequel before of the first Jaws movie, but somehow they turned it down, and Universal didn't want this kind of idea, so that's where the new director John Schwartz took over this second film. However, Roy Scheider was under contract to Universal. At first he didn't want to return, he refused to come back to play as Chief Brody, and there were some major production issues and big fights between both Roy Scheider and John Schwartz. They've been arguing, then start fighting, going head to head at each other. So technically, Jaws 2 was starting to become a big mess, and the production was out of control, and there was no ideas and no storyline for it at all.
Well, honestly, to think about it, Jaws 2 did have most of the formula than the first one did. It's the ingredient of how to make a pizza. Well, okay, let me try to explain this. You decide to make a pizza for your friends and family. You have everything that you need, all the ingredients. You have the dough, the cheese, the sauce, butter, and every single topping that you want to put on your pizza. You do it all, you make the pizza, you put it in the oven, you heat it up, and then once you take it out, you have a little taste test, but somehow, when you taste that pizza, there's something missing. You forgot one ingredient to that pizza. And that's what Jaws 2 is. It's missing an ingredient. It's a pizza that's missing a fucking ingredient. That kind of makes me hungry. Now I'm craving for pizza. Excuse me, folks.
Well, for most likely, in my opinion, Jaws 2 is kind of a fair horror movie. That's what I'll give it much. I thought maybe for sure it would have been maybe possibly boosted up to a rated R Jaws movie. That way it would have been more interesting and be more darker. And they wouldn't have just kept the elements, and possibly with this original director that was going to direct the second film instead of Schwartz. But unfortunately they wanted to keep the tone down and just lighten the movie up just a bit. When I said the story plot was the same as the first film, it practically is. So it's actually about with Chief Brody trying to warn everyone that there's another shark that is terrorizing the town. Practically, they don't believe him. They think it's just nothing. It's the same thing, the same formula. I thought they couldn't just like do it a little different, make the town just like believe that there is a shark, coming in, or probably bring some weapons or alarms, something just to let everyone know that there's a shark nearby at the beach. At least they couldn't have changed this movie. They couldn't have changed the formula or changed the elements. Just change the formula a bit. There were two storylines, just like in the first one. In the first Jaws movie, it did have two storylines. One was that Chief Brody was just trying to figure out what's happening at the beach and realizing that there's a shark attack happening. And then the second storyline is both where Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Drivers go down there to hunt down the shark and kill it. And now with part 2, it's the same thing. Chief Brody warns everyone that there's another shark attack happening. But in the second storyline, it's about Brody's son. Now he's a teenager hanging out with his friends, going sailing on the beach till there's a shark coming in. Practically, yeah, it's the same storyline. But what they could have changed is just concentrate much more on his son. Let Mike be the protagonist and let Chief Brody be the secondary character. That's what they should have done. They couldn't just like change it up a bit, like change up the storyline, change up the characters, change up the formula, how to like mix it up, just mix it up, but not too much, trying to like keep the story very solid, including the script. They couldn't have made the script very solid too. And as for the shark, the only thing was different about it, face is burned, like the side of his face is totally burned. Remember when I reviewed for the first Jaws movie, when I make fun of the Jaws, saying make fun of the first shark that he was like Jason Voorhees? Well, I'm thinking that he could be between of either Freddy or Two-Face. Actually, his face isn't that burned. It's just only his side of his burned. So technically, this shark is Two-Face.
Oh, tell me you made a picture, Bones. Tell me you did.
Oh, yes I do, Shadow. I really do. And here it is.
Ha ha ha! I'm gonna keep that picture.
We got a two-faced shark. Now for Chief Brody, now he's on patrol. There was a scene somehow that he tries to prove that there is a shark happening. And apparently when he goes on patrol, he looks out for everyone to be sure that everybody is safe. And by there, where he spots something that clearly does look like a shark, at first he thought, it's probably nothing, but when he looks at it again and realizes everyone was down there and something was close nearby and believes that it was the shark, he goes all batshit crazy and tells everyone to get out of the water. He pulls out his gun, starts shooting, freaking everybody out. And at that point on, someone just pointed out that it was just bluefish. So in other words, it was a false alarm. He tries to apologize to everyone, but now they don't want to go back in the water thanks to his riot. So at that point on, he was the threat. So plan A didn't work. Now it was plan B. He finds a camera and then tries maybe someone took a picture of the shark. He found one picture, which was the shark's eye. So he prints it out and takes it to the town hall, shows it to the mayor and everyone else to believe that that's the shark that's attacking everyone. They don't believe him and they don't think that it's not a shark. It could be anything. Hell, it could be Hell, that picture could be anything. It may not be a shark. Probably it could have been just some sort of a other sea creature. At that point on, he lost his job. Now he was unemployed. I guess that shark really fucked him up. So by there, the next day, where Mike and his brother go on a sail trip, and by there, that's where the shark goes out terrorizing everyone, terrorizing Mike and his friends. And there, Chief Brody goes and rescue his son Mike, and then rescue everybody else. At the end, he finds a electrical pole wire thingy-mabobber. Oh god, thingy-mabobber, what you gonna do, Hickey? The shark was going after his other son and the girl, but then he just whacked it with the pad, and then where the shark goes after Brody, shoves that wire right in the shark's mouth, and he goes electrocuted and then goes on fire, and that point on, the shark was dead and saved everybody else. Well, after done talking about this film, Jaws 2, once again, is very fair, and they did have some of the elements, but there were a few missing. But glad that the cast came back just for the second time. And even though that once again with the Roy Scheider's riot and going all batshit crazy and finding off the director Schwartz, technically I just really wish that they could have done better. They could have gone the other route, the other idea, just to make it darker and having the other director just to direct this film. And personally, it could have been just a sequel, made for a sequel to Robert Shaw's character, of how it all began. That could have been a great sequel slash prequel to Jaws.
To see that part 2 did have the same storyline, they couldn't have some new ideas. Other than that, why couldn't they just make it darker and made it rated R? Somehow the director wants to keep the tone just a little down, just keep it PG, up to the same level as the first one did. Unfortunately, they couldn't get some good ideas. Except up to the second story was a little different, and this time it was concentrating on Mike and his friend's adventure and trying to survive from this great white killer shark. Now there was something a little different, and honestly they couldn't just pick that point on make Mike's son as the protagonist, being the main character and all. Forget about Chief Brody. Make him as a secondary character and let Mike be the first main character. Let him be the hero for the change.
But the music score was great, and I'm glad that John Williams returned for the second time to do this film. So that was definitely good. Just to bring back the sequel, just to bring back the couple of the actors and actresses. And too bad that Richard Dreyfuss didn't return, so that was fair. I'm just glad he didn't return for part 2 because it was a mess and kind of a sham. I'll just say that it was Jaws 2, the productions, it was quite of a sham. But is it worth watching? Yes, I will agree on that. But I don't have this movie on Blu-ray or DVD, not just yet. I did download it on iTunes, so practically I do have this movie, just don't have it on Blu-ray or DVD yet. So just to rate this film for Jaws 2, I'll have to give this a 7.8 out of 10, which equals to a 78%, so the grade will have to be B-.
Well, honestly, to rate and grade part 2, I'll have to give this a 7.5 out of 10. Which equals to a 75%, so the grade will have to be just a solid C.
Jaws 2 may not be the best sequel, it may not be as better than the first film. Most likely I'll say is a memorable sequel to watch and enjoy, and I'm glad that Roy Scheider returned for the second time, even though that he didn't want to come back, but he was contracted by Universal. Storyline, it was the same, but they couldn't make it a little different and try to maybe make his son to be the main character. But for Mike, his character is just the beginning. Practically, he was the main character in 3 and The Revenge, in which I'll review those 2 in the future. But part 2 is classic, but not to be a sequel to follow up for Jaws. I would say it was kind of a standalone, and I felt like it was a reboot. So if I ever get a chance, I'll be finding this movie on Blu-ray and DVD. And this is P.M.R.Bonez88's signing off. The saying is, peace!
Wait for the summer to end. It's almost over. Next 2 months, October reigns supreme. Halloween! I am so stoked. I cannot wait to see with the vampires, witches, scarecrows, werewolves. It will be a monster mash. I'm gonna love it. Well, catch you on the flip side.